Hey, good morning, everybody. We're getting started here. Make sure everything's recording. Yep. Thanks for joining us. Just gonna alert some people here that we're one second. If you have a question, go ahead and throw those in the question box or in the chat, and we'll get started here with a discussion on kind of using the profile and order flow in just a second. All right, there he is. JP's with us.
Hola.
Hola. Let me get my slides here real quick. I'm promoting you. You're now a panelist.
So special. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, you do what you can.
If you guys can, I see the attendings. Thanks for showing up. If you want, just toss in there where you guys from and what kind of trading experience you guys have. Why Josh sets this up.
All right, we're ready to go. First, just a present reminder of risk. You know, trading is a risky endeavor. Know where your risk is. Have a plan. You know, about the only thing that we can define as traders is where our risk is. And today, actually, you know, will help you if you're having trouble figuring that out. I think this is going to be helpful around that. This is me, Josh Euler. I'm the founder of Trade Profile. Been in the industry a while. JP's with me as well. He's one of our coaches. Between the two of us, we've got several decades of successful market experience, both the retail side and also on the institutional side, more of late. For our Q&A session today, we're going to get started with content that we've been discussing as part of those who are part of our pathway this week, around order flow as an auction component. So the challenge this specifically helps with, you know, like we're always looking for things that confirm entries and can give us greater confidence in our entries and or exits. Primarily, we'll look at entries as a way that this helps, but we're looking at how we can use something like order flow as a complementary indicator for the profile so that we have greater confidence. So with that said, let's just pop over here and we'll kind of walk through a couple trades that we've been working on today. We actually have one that we're still trailing, but two trades, one in the NASDAQ and one in crude. Let's start in the NASDAQ at the moment. Close some tabs here. Okay, just some quick orientation. So you can see, you know, this is the session that we're looking at right here. This was last night's Globex. This is yesterday's session. So right now we're inside of that session. I've got a volume or a market profile graphic that's colored by volume intensity. I've got a volume profile, so you can see the volume histogram, the contract volume, so how many contracts trade at each price with the intensity. Darker colors there's more volume. And then this is order flow at a price. It's a histogram that shows me the intensity at each price was it either buyers and or sellers. So today you can see that, you know, the big levels, the red and the magenta, that's all been to the sell side. But the trade that we just got done was actually to the buy side. So what I want to do is I want to open this up. And what this is this is a 30-minute, this is breaking each period 30 minutes, and it's got a 5-minute histogram with order flow at price on top of that. That's allowing me to see where is there an intensity of buyers and sellers, as well as I've got the volume histogram, which is another form of order flow. So what order flow is, and a number of ways you can measure it, but it's really just a way to describe participant activity, specifically around, you know, what's happening between buyers and sellers, right? You know, how does price move? But price moves lower because you had more sellers than you had buyers. Right? Price moves higher because I had more intensive buyers and sellers. And so the trade specifically they were looking at, we could see that the auction was going lower. We got into one of our decision zones down here, and then this 5-minute period right here. Okay, everybody can see this 5-minute period. Made new lows on the day. You can see that there was some impulsive selling, and they pushed lower below that. But then the next 5 minutes, they were all buyers. They were buyers that came back, and we got back through this area of, you know, acceptance where there was both buyers and sellers. So sellers tried to push lower, couldn't get. They came back to an area where there's buyers and sellers, and then particularly pay attention to this period right here. Okay, there was big buying session volume, and there was only this is buy side on the order flow. So basically at these prices, it was aggressive buyers that were showing up. At the time, we had some naked singles in the profile. So, you know, there was a hole in the profile up to the 50s, and so we were looking for this right here. If we held this and it got a pullback in the next 5 minutes, which we did, so we were getting in around 2026 area, and we were looking for the 50s. And then we were using this as a key area to defend, and then trailing it. And you could see there was another buying spike that came in here, and that's the one that got us to the target. So we're looking at areas in the profile. What was happening in the profile was you have a point of control that's way up here. The price is below value. We had hit kind of the key target area from yesterday's profile that we were looking for, and seeing if the auction could get below it. Couldn't get below it, came back into the zone, and then spiked with buyers. That order flow, that buying order flow, presented an intraday opportunity to fill out the profile and capture, you know, about 20 points, 25 points, somewhere in there. Which on the NASDAQ, you know, is $20 a tick, or $20 a point. So 25 points, you made $500. Other parts of order flow that we look at is something called cumulative delta. So cumulative delta looks at, you know, basically this whole histogram right here and says, okay, where's that number total for the day? So you can see here there's contract volume in here. So I can see from another aspect of order flow is that as the auction's moving lower, look at participation was tailing off. So, you know, the volume at price was tailing off. Also, you can see on the histogram there were, you know, sellers trying to go lower, and they were actually losing interest from the sell side as volume was tailing off. That's another indication that we were running out of stuff to the downside. But then this cumulative delta, this is just a number that shows the total difference between buyers and sellers. On this platform, Window Trader, a positive number represents seller control. And we've had, you know, even though we took the long, we're recognizing that sellers are controlling the day. So that's why we weren't, you know, in this trade to, you know, go to the moon. We had a pretty reasonable target around that. So, do that as you're looking, as you're finding areas within the profile. Profile can help you identify places where we're below value, where we're creating what we call poor structure in the auction. That can all identify opportunities, but then as you're trying to trigger into that, you're looking for order flow to go with you. You want other participants with you if you want your trading entries to have more favorable expectancy rather quickly. Two metrics that we look at, one is called a max favorable excursion and one's a max adverse excursion. Max adverse excursion is how long did that trade go against you, and max favorable is how far did it go in your favor. So we were trailing this trade, and it actually traded higher than where we got stopped out, because hey, if we got back up to the point of control at 77, we're all for that. But at first we're just kind of trailing this thing and defending each one of these buying spikes as a place that we don't want the order flow to go back through. And you can tell here was that last buying spike, and then notice once the auction got back through it, now we're resuming back to the downside. So it's a good thing to do. An exercise, if you don't have this type of capacity in your platform where you can see the order flow at price, is I would say just use a chart like this where you've got a 5-minute volume. This is just a 5-minute volume histogram, okay? And you can note where there are significant peaks, okay? And then note what happens after those areas, like what the behavior is over time. Now these were all inside of the opening range we had an inventory report, but this one right here, notice that you had this big buying spike, and there's no wick at all. It just opens and just goes. Okay, that's strong buying order flow. That's the level to defend if you're long. And this is the trade that we're still in. We're in this trade and trailing this trade. Our entry was at 35 on the breakout, and our target is up here at the 77.80 area. And so let's go over to crude here now and kind of look at that as we break that out. So we're probably going to need to adjust our stops here. Yeah, so we're gonna get stops here at 60 now. I need to put that in there quickly.
Hey guys, and while he's doing that, if you have any questions, just go ahead and place them in here, and you can just send them to us directly. And we want to get any questions that you have, whether it's regards to today's trade or how we set that up, what the profile is, et cetera, et cetera. Just put them in there. We're glad to help you out.
Yep. Yeah. We're out. Okay. All right. Out 60 from 35 entry. Awesome. I'm going to pull up the Q&A, see if there's...
It's been a good morning.
Yeah, it has been a good morning.
Yeah. And just understand, guys, on stuff like this, there's some patience that had to been. I mean, what time we get into that crude this morning? What time was that?
On the crude or the NASDAQ?
Well, both. I mean, because it was, crude was well after the open. So.
Yeah. We got in NASDAQ at 11:55 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah. So, I mean, we had to wait quite a ways, guys, to get in these things. So there's a lot of patience. This morning on the NASDAQ, it was real similar to that. It was 11:55. Is that right?
11:55 on the NASDAQ, and then the crude entry the crude entry actually occurred right here. And then we were almost at risk of getting stopped out. Initially, we were using IB low as our risk, for our target up here. And then once we pushed back in again, then we moved our stop up to close where entry was. But that was part of our plan.
Which is lesson number 2. Have a plan.
Have a plan.
I know listen, guys, we're not going to overcomplicate this stuff.
Yeah. So here's another example in terms of was an order flow. So I'm looking for a long in soybeans. I'd like to be long soybeans, and let's go look at the longer term chart here, and you'll see what I'm looking at. Okay. So here's a 90-day point of control. So and you can see we're coming into that area right in here. It's also a high volume node for the last month. And we're below monthly value, which is, right here. And I'm looking for some kind of turn to go back towards 876 if this area can hold, and then make, the next push higher. It's a swing trade that I'm looking for in soybeans. And I want, again, well, I'm kind of I'm getting close to the zone. However, the order flow is to the sell side. And all you can see here on the histogram, all I've seen all day have been sellers. So until that story changes, I'm not interested in buying this thing. There's no trigger or reason to be long soybeans at the moment, which is great, because then I can just say, basically can set alert and say, okay, well, unless we trade back through the open, which might be an indicator that the order flow had flipped, I'm not going to do anything with this trade. And then I'm going to go back out here, just kind of look at my dashboard and see where everybody's at. Rest of the indexes too.
All right, anybody have any questions? Anything off?
Any questions, or if there's anything that you're like, hey, I'm trying to figure this out, to figure out, a better way around this specific challenge I'm having. And that's a great thing for us to kind of explore for the rest of our time.
Yeah, throw it in. Hey, listen, I'm going to just tell you right now, don't feel like it's something it's just you, because we've all had it eventually at one point or another.
Yep.
It's sort of part of being a trader. So
yep.
If you have it, Josh and I most likely experienced it. So.
Right. And you can also send that to us privately.
Yeah, don't be shy. We won't call you out on the deal. It's pretty common. So the story is why we wait for a question is when we were deep sea fishing one time. This is way back when, before I got into it like I do now. But my wife and I are deep sea fishing, and we have very rough seas. We're out by some oil rigs in the Gulf of Mexico, and we got about 8 to 10 foot swells, and it's difficult fishing. And of course, we're sick as a dog. And the old captain comes up, and he's eating a sandwich, and everybody's not doing well. And he looks at my wife, and he goes, "Hey, honey, don't be shy. Just let it fly."
Mm-hmm.
Took me a long time to get her on a boat after that.
Are there any products that y'all are trading that we haven't kind of looked at today?
Yeah, one was saying they were simming. I won't say who it is, but what products are you simming right now?
Yeah. All these indexes are just still inside days. Inside days, inside days. So ESCL, NQ, YM, some good products. Yeah, so things about order flow. I mean, order flow is just another metric to help give you some directional confidence in where the auction's going. You know, so like one of the things that I look at here. Okay, so see this metric right here. It says cumulative delta. So I'm looking at a bunch of products. Some are positive, some are negative. So what that says is between the bid and the ask. So if I had a let me pull up a DOM here so you can. Can I wonder if I can even do that in here. Here, I know how to do this. Hang on a second. Bear with me. Try and do that without showing everybody my account numbers. Sorry, I kind of like to keep those private. Okay, 48. This is just some slides from what we were covering earlier this week with those in our pathway. But okay, let's look at you know, familiar with this. This is a depth of market, you know, a market ladder where you can see intended offers. You know, people willing to sell. This is places people are willing to buy. And I mean, these are not real. But nothing's really actually happened, right? Nothing's been placed yet. So, but once a trigger has a trade has actually taken place, then it's recorded. So when we look at, for example, if we go in here, whoop, I can see 7 contracts traded at 69.82 and 3/4. You know, was that buyers or sellers? Well, I can tell you from this histogram, because this is showing me the difference between buyers and sellers at the on what was executed here, that it was sellers and there was nobody else to go with them. So that ended the selling. So that's now done. So what delta and order flow is trying to give you a way to measure what's happening, not just the number of contracts at a price, but also, was it primarily buyers? Was it primary sellers? Here's where that can be helpful. So if I get it in a price down here, and I find, like, I mean, look, this was all sellers. These are people trying to sell down here, and they all got trapped. In fact, you know, the last number of these, it was mostly sellers down here, and they couldn't get lower prices. So these are all people selling in the hole, essentially. For them to be right, you're going to have to get additional contracts traded down here. We're going to have to find some more sellers to build this out, and some buyers who are willing to facilitate trade down here for the auction to keep going lower. So, you know, what order flow does is it helps us say, okay, in this period, who's kind of controlling this period? And there's a number of ways that we can measure that. We can measure that in terms of session volume or period volume. So, you know, a good old volume histogram, you can see today, you know, this was impulsive, this was strong, this was strong. You know, if you're not, you'll notice that there are periods of the day that are more active than others. What happens after them? That's always the question. Is like, what happens after those? The reasonable expectation is that when you have a stronger period of buying session volume or selling session period volume, you're going to get some order flow or some follow through. That's the normal expectation. And by adding that to areas in the profile that you're looking to participate, it can help you know, hey, where's a turn or where's an area to defend. So like we talked about earlier, you know, we were getting long, you know, this was a zone that we were looking to get long earlier, And it was this 5-minute period here that had strong period volume and also showed buyers on the histogram to let me know buyers were stepping in. And if they held those prices, primarily if they held this area on the histogram, the volume profile, then I have confidence that this thing could go higher, and it was going higher to our target of the 50s. So what can be a little bit confusing is that some people will talk about order flow and they only ever mean the delta between the bid and the ask. Some will talk about order flow and they'll talk about the period volume. Some will look at order flow and look at, what's the cumulative buying and selling throughout the period. One way to look at that is, and let's look at it this way. Okay, if I look at a 35-minute, or look at this is a cumulative histogram of the order flow of at each 5-minute period. Cumulative through the day, was it primarily buyers or sellers? Well, you can see now that we're actually pressing lower on the day, or back towards the lows, but the order flow is not as strong to the downside as it was earlier. One way to potentially interpret that is if we can't get a lower order flow number, is that we're running out of sellers, and there may be an opportunity for a nice bounce, back up into the trade later in the session. About as light as I can do that. We go way more in depth through our pathway, but that's about as light an idea as I can give you. Good question.
Yeah, that was a good question. Too bad I kept talking to myself in mute, so I'll be all right.
Yeah, I mean, anything that you would add, JP?
Well, other than just that, I like to see people analyze weekly and monthlies, from a top-down position. Okay, is that what you're talking about? Talking about the question on the weeklies and the monthlies?
Oh no, I was talking about the order flow first, and then we would talk about the weekly.
Oh, okay. No, I have no more to add on the order flow. So I was getting frustrated because I was on mute, and then I tried to take it off, or I tried to take it off mute, and I got yanked off of here for some reason. It's really weird. So
yeah,
but no, I mean,
if some of you may have seen something called a footprint chart. It's just another way of kind of seeing what you're seeing in these histograms here. Is you're trying to see, at prices, what was happening at those prices, how intense was it? I have this platform set up where I can see the intensity visually in a period, especially if I see them stack in. Where'd my pen tool go?
And while he's looking for his pen tool, there's a lot of different ways of analyzing order flow. And like he said, the footprint chart was probably the first out there. It was the first, I believe. And so, yeah, that's what everybody sees. But just understand there's a lot of different ways of looking at order flow. And whatever, it's not one way is right for everyone. Okay, yeah. Probably a better way of saying it.
Yeah, pick one and be consistent.
Yeah.
But you can see, okay, pins back here. You can see there's a cluster here of selling that's showing up on this histogram. And I'm also looking for that to be paired with, in this period, am I getting a strong selling like here as well? So it could just be these are people attempting, but there's not a lot of volume to go with them. So unlikely that they're going to get follow through. Okay, so the question around weekly or even monthly profile. So I do every morning as part of my plan. I actually look at this. This is looking at a daily chart and has a monthly and weekly profile. The key thing that I look for there is I look for convergence across time frames. So this you can see there's an area right here that multiple. Not only was it a high volume last week, this week, but it was also a node the prior week, and it's the point of control for the month. So that's a very key level. So any place that I see that, I have a higher expectation that the auction will pause or struggle to get through that. So even yesterday, we were expecting, push to like 71.26 or 63 potential, 71.45, but knew that was probably going to be it, even though we had this massive buying excess yesterday, just because it was coming back up into this area. So absolutely use multiple time frames as part of your analysis, just to kind of know where are those bigger levels.
There was another question
Oh yeah,
here too.
yeah. So the delta can be a two-sided sword. Bottom reversal, for example, you could say it's the strength of the buyers that stopped the down move, or there were passive buyers sitting absorbing the sellers. Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Can I mention something else? That's a great thing,
Yeah.
And that is a great question, by the way, because you're right. Delta can be a finicky. Well, I won't go that route, but finicky, yes. So that's why a lot of times if we're watching that into a certain area, now if we're long or short, we're looking for delta to continue to be strengthening or weakening depending on which direction we're going. But if it's something where we're looking to see if the knife is going to stick in the ground, or we're going to stop here, maybe pause here, maybe have a trend reversal, that's why we look like, and we may need to go back over it again, Josh, on the NASDAQ on that reversal that we did today. I think we saw some weakening of delta going into that bottom there, but we're not going to buy that bottom at all. I mean, we're going to wait for we get some confirmation to the upside, and then we're waiting for a little bit of a pullback, or some type of confirmation in order flow that then the buyers are stepping in at that point. Does that make sense? You there, Josh?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say this is part of part of it's a confirmation of an area that you're interested in based on what's happening in the profile. So if my perspective is that it's a complement, it's an auction component. It is not where I'm making my trade, why I'm making my trading decisions. Like there's something happening in the profile first. Then did I see order flow that was complementary to that? That's where the confidence comes in to execute.
And regardless of how you use, could you explain the trading plan today? Yeah, just a second, that we will. That's a great question too. So going back to the order flow thing, for all you on the phone here or on the call, however you use it, just the key point is this: understand how you use it. Okay, I guarantee Josh and I use it a little bit differently. Not too much. We're pretty similar in our trade styles, but there are a couple people that are with us in our channel that use it a little bit differently, and that's fine. Okay, trading it. I mean, as we always say, there's really only 4 trades in the world. All right, and you just have to learn how to deal with those trades. And what tools that you use. You use the profile, you use order flow, and based off that, that gives you more of an edge, if you will, or, in other words, we can like we said this morning, it allows us to establish risk. So what does that mean? That means that allows us to identify what our risk is before we get into the trade. If we're willy-nilly taking it on weak delta, strong delta, whatever the case may be, or strong order flow, weak order flow, then we're just trading all over the place, and we really don't have a plan, and we don't know how to establish risk and manage risk. Because in the end, that's really what it's all boiled down to, is can you take, when you do take a loss, and there will be losses, that can you make those losses small, in relation to in relation to how big the upside trade is, or how big your trade is, when you have a winner. Like this morning, we had very small loss on identified, but we had a really nice winner. I mean, that was definitely a multiple of our risk. So however you use it, you need to understand how it works for you. And obviously we can help you with that, but it's important for that, because you want to make sure that it's in your plan, and that's how you gain confidence in that. The order flow will help you with confidence, but will give you more confidence that that it's your setup and it's your plan, and you've seen it a load of times. There was somebody in here today said they've been sim trading for 5 years. If you're sim trading the same plan for 5 years, I will tell you, you probably have an extreme amount of confidence in your trade plan. At least I hope you do.
Mm-hmm. I hope so.
Yeah.
Hope you're logging you're keeping a journal to know what's working and what's not. So,
Yeah.
you know, plan for today. I can tell you just kind of high level. We'll just look at the NASDAQ here, and then we'll also look at crude and kind of talk about the plan for those two specific products. Yesterday was a trend day higher, open auction outside range, lower open in the NASDAQ that closed the gap and trended higher. Okay, the plan today really was around where were we going to be between a couple different key levels. So one key level was this big composite zone up here, and then also was yesterday's naked point of control. I don't have a lot of time to go in it, but one thing that's indicative of a trend day that you typically get is you get value migrating with price. So even though a trend day should lead to follow through the next day, the fact that we didn't pull that 722 higher was suspect to me, and that said, hey, if we get below this area, this is the playground, which you can see so far is actually the playground. That made, especially if we held under this, if we took out IB low, that made the 7022 a target. So that's kind of the place that we were looking to play. So that was the overall plan. And then we're watching to see how does the auction act around key inventory levels. So we had a key inventory level here at the 7020 area. And you can see that, the auction tried to get below that and then couldn't, came back above it, which that actually is connected to, Greg, your question about when the auction failed to hold a new low and rallied back into a higher volume node. He was looking to buy around 7,005 with risk at the low. Is that an early or premature entry? Well, depending on your plan, it may be perfect, and depending on where your target was, it may be perfect. Here's one thing that is nice about that, and sometimes you may, if you're ever around us for very long, you'll hear us say sometimes it's better to buy higher or buy lower than buy right at the price that you're at, or sell higher or sell lower than the price that you're at, because you want to see some kind of confirmation. Note in D period here that there was a decent build out of volume right here. And another way that we would see order flow, right? There's some acceptance there. The auction pushes below that and then comes back to that. Well, if the auction moves away from, this is just the way auctions work. Auction moves away from a prior area of acceptance and comes back to that, it can increase the auction's confidence to explore in the other direction. So, by waiting for it to come back into this area, and then basically saying, I'm going to defend the lows, that's actually a great place. Then the question you have to ask is, from 7,005 down to 6,974, is that the risk that you want to have on that trade? Because you really don't know that you're wrong, until you're, seeing, acceptance back lower, because it could pull back into that area and then, run back up through it again. And that's what you got to know if that's part of how you want to define the risk. We like to define risk when we can, in terms of 1 to 3, so that the reward is 3 times the risk. So if at the time you're looking at 7,005, and if you were at that period of time, we were all looking at the 7055 area, and the volume point of control in the day was 7066. You could look at that and say, hey, that's actually at least a 2 to 1 risk to reward. If it got up here, that's getting closer to 2, getting closer to 3 to 1. So I like that. I don't think that's premature at all. Question. Oh, I was going to talk about crude. Let me talk about crude here real quick. So crude's a little bit different beast in that we have EIA today, and EIA is a binary event. You have both other time frame buyers and sellers active, and so what we were looking for there is, I like to see, kind of after the event, I want to see them try to extend past the initial balance in one direction. You can see that they tried lower first, and failed, and came back through and then took out the IB high. It's neutral behavior, but I tend to go with whoever was the last one to extend the IB, especially on a binary event. So the plan today actually was to look for what we call a quote unquote second move, and go with that trade. And so that's what this was all about, was going with that second move across the initial balance post the EIA event. just that's also an effective strategy that you can employ for like FOMC or some other kind of mid-session announcement where you're going to get some binary activity.
And that's a week, I think, did you say it was a weekly event? Right.
So it's a weekly event. Yep.
Yeah, that's a weekly event. So there's a binary, and a binary event means, if you guys aren't familiar with the term, it just means that it's an event that happens and can it can affect pricing and movement of it away from normal trade. Okay, yeah. So there's lots of different binary events. It could be a news event. It could be a tragedy. It could be something else that happens. Oil rig goes down, gets blown up. You never know. I mean, it's just not with oil. It goes with everything. So
this is particularly for scheduled binary. And binary also, those of you who understand coding, ones or zeros, yes or no. We don't know. We don't know which way it's going to go, and we don't try to say which way it's going to go. So you never. I don't ever come into an event like that and go, well, let's take FOMC. Based on rate hikes, I believe the auction is going to do this. Because the number of times I've seen, like today, the inventory report in crude was bearish. So, immediately they tried to go lower, trapped bears who were trading the news, and then squeezed them. So I don't try to make a assumption on an event like that where it's a planned release. I just say, how did the auction behave? And if they extend in one direction and just keep going in that direction, then I may join them, but I want to see them continue to accept those prices in that direction, not just get myself trapped. All right, we're gonna land the plane a little bit early this week, just because I got some travel to get ready for and got some stuff in the family. But let's take about another 5 minutes for any last questions. Kind of our weekly reminder. If you're not, I think most of these names I recognize to some degree. If you're not you haven't gotten our free course, make sure you got that. You can get that on the front page on our website, or our Build to Profile course is well, it's about 20 hours, 12 module video course, kind of take you from having no understanding of trading to how to use the profile and where to go from there. Most of you, especially if you've been trading futures, are probably past that. And the thing you need to decide is, hey, is the next step starting with one of our trials and just spend a week with us working on your plan. And it's real easy. You can just go to our homepage. You can pick your plan, and you get a 7-day trial for that. So you can just go to our homepage, click pick your plan, and sign up for one of these plans. Just start the trial. You can read about them, and the worst that you'll lose is you'll spend 7 days getting better as a trader.
Yeah, that stinks.
That stinks. And if you make sure you're following us on Twitter and Facebook. And if you ever want to schedule a call just to assess, hey, does this make sense for me? Is this the best next step for me? Yeah, totally willing to entertain those conversations, and we'll give you a fair shake. If you're past us, if particularly if your issues stem from more psychological struggles than tactical. So you may have actually a defined plan and the expectancy around that, and you're just struggling with the emotional, cognitive part of that. There's other places that we would steer you toward and partners that we have that would be helpful in building that aspect of it. But if you're still not consistent yet, if you're not consistently drawing money from the market, we're a great firm to work with at kind of helping you build that.
Yeah, and guys, just understand that and I'm going to say this because, again, I guarantee you, Josh and I have been there, done that, got the T-shirt. If it's cognitive and you're struggling mentally, that's okay. You got to get through that. Nope. I've never. Hang on, one guy. Okay, I've seen one person in my 18 years, and I've come across a lot of them, and I've traded with a lot of them on desks and stuff like this. I will tell you, there's one person I've ever seen that stepped into a trading environment and became profitable right away because they had all the goods. And that is the extreme exception and never the rule. The rule is always that you have to battle through some struggles. You have to understand a lot of, first you have to develop your trade setups, and you have to understand yourself as a person and get past some of those hiccups that we have. We all have them. Okay. And it's a continuous, a constant cycle. So what we don't want, and what we see a lot of out there in the world of trading, and hopefully this will reduce your time frame to become what we call consistently profitable, because that's what everybody's dream is. That's what everybody wants, is to be consistently profitable. I will tell you, it is possible. Okay. But the challenge here is you have to open yourself up and allow some improvements to happen, both on the trading side, and also to make sure that your thinking is not too stinky, right? And so opening up to somebody is important. So, I mean, don't hesitate to reach out to Josh or I and to discuss these things, because they're real. It is going to be necessary. Don't get stubborn and think, oh, I've got to, do this on my own. I can battle through it. You may be able to battle through it, but you better be able to stay solvent for about 10 years to get through it, because it's going to take you a long time. So don't hesitate. I'm going to strongly encourage you to reach out to either us or whatever you feel is necessary, whoever you feel is necessary to discuss it with, because it is important. And don't be embarrassed about it, because I promise you we've gone through it. Okay. So you're in, like I said, I got the t-shirt if you want it. I'll send it to you. Emotional training info. What do you mean by that? Do we have some?
Yeah. No, one of our a friend of ours is Exceptional Trader. So Terry Lieberman, who actually is the guy behind Window Trader, has a great firm that works. He does not work on trading skill. That's not what they do. But they work on, what are the underlying, why are you wanting to trade? What are your values? How are you building your business plan? What's success look like for you? And then kind of helping you at a more holistic level. And that's a great place to go if you're like, hey, I've got an approach that works. I know it works. I know it's got edge. I struggle to execute on it. If that's the case, then yeah, doing some work around just yourself as a person, because it could be there could be a lack of confidence from the past that has so built a story that you're a failure when you're in fact not. But those stories can be ingrained and they're hard to overcome. And there's work to kind of deal with what you'd call either the true self of who you are or the false self. And there's never anything lost when you do that. In fact, that's an ongoing work that you do. In addition to just the raw, hey, I've got an approach and plan that works. Now, sometimes you don't even have one. You're like, I don't know that I have expectancy around a trade. I don't have a playbook that works. Well, in that case, you go work on the trading consistency first and build a playbook of trades that work, that you look for, and then you trade those trades. If you don't have that first, then that explains the emotional problems. But if you do have, you're like, no, I know these trades work. I know how to identify them, and I still can't pull the trigger, or I can't do. Then there's some more soft skills work to be done. And we're happy to connect you with Terry and Exceptional Trader. They do some good stuff.
Yeah, ultimately, it's about getting you to where you want to go. And so and that may not even be us, to be honest with you, but we know where to point you to get good information that's how do I say it, real.
Mm-hmm.
Terry's great, by the way.
Yeah.
Don't have it yet, we'll get it done.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right, guys, we're gonna bounce for today. We'll be back on a regular scheduled Friday next week, and be looking for, again, this recording and the link to join us for next week. Next week, we're looking at the initial balance and how we can use that to help us discern who's in control in the auction. It'll be a great discussion, and then we'll also, again, fill whatever other questions that you got. If you're not part of our community, haven't done a trial with us, do that. We got nothing to lose. For those of you who are part of our community, You guys are awesome. You're absolutely killing it. I mean, I'm really excited for the work that you guys are doing.
Yeah, impressive. I'm super impressed with these guys. They're doing great. So,
Right. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of the day. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.
all right, take care, guys.